It's a great big world out there, and I really think that everybody's life is trying to find their place in that big world. Whether it's writing a song, building a car, playing your guitar, writing a book, drawing a picture, being a parent, being a husband or a wife. Everybody's journey involves that big picture. Where do I belong in that great big world out there? My life has been a roller coaster. Ups and downs, trials and errors. I'm always on that search for what defines me. So I decided that after I got to a place that I was very comfortable with, I wanted to start giving back. I wanted to teach DDP yoga to other people. I wanted to become a level 1 certified trainer and teach classes and give back with the program. And a friend of mine had a toy store in a flea market in Flint. That same flea market also had pro wrestling. It was a little company called the Michigan Wrestling Organization. I had the idea that maybe I should find whoever owns this company and pitch DDP yoga to a larger audience through this show. I was a huge fan of pro wrestling. DDP yoga was made by a professional wrestler. What better place to promote this product than at a wrestling show?
From what I can remember, it was through a direct message or a text message of some sort, and he indicated that he was interested in coming in and doing a demonstration of DDP yoga. And I knew what DDP yoga was. You know, I never tried it or anything like that. But, you know, my involvement with wrestling, both as a fan and being involved in the business, of course I knew who Diamond Dallas Page was, right? So I was aware of the whole DDP yoga thing, and I didn't do a whole lot of research on it, because again, it wasn't something that was necessarily on my radar. Like that's something that I'm going to dive into or anything like that. It was nothing like that at all. I was just aware of it.
Jason was really open to it. Jason very quickly was like, yeah, that sounds awesome. Come down to our show. We have a show in January. It's called the Bunkhouse Brawl. This was in 2015. He said, come on down and I'll find you a little spot on the show for you to come out and talk about DDP yoga. Just come in through the back with the boys and I'll find you. We'll figure it out and we'll make it happen. Talk about exciting. Here I was, a lifetime fan of professional wrestling, a person that was really diehard and dedicated to giving back with this program, and I was going to get a stage in professional wrestling to illustrate myself and what I was about. I was so excited. Even if this was the only time I was ever going to walk through a door of pro wrestling, I can say that I was on a pro wrestling show. To me, that was the ultimate high at that time. So the day came, I packed a gear bag, which, I mean, how ridiculous. What the hell do I need a gear bag for? I'm walking into a company just to talk about DDP yoga. Why do I need a costume? But watching wrestling, I always saw that wrestlers had gear bags that they drug into the arena when they're just arriving. And I wanted to be a part of the pro wrestling world. So I figured if this is my one shot, I'm gonna have fun. I even brought an entrance theme. Talk about ridiculous. I brought a theme thinking I was gonna make this grand entrance and the fans were gonna react to somebody they didn't even know. I brought Paul Stanley's Live to Win as my entrance theme. It really encompassed what I was going through at the time, what I was trying to achieve. So I thought it would be appropriate.
I had been doing DDP yoga myself, so I was kind of excited to meet Todd, and he didn't disappoint. Paul positive attitude from day one. I introduced myself, told him that I do the DDP yoga myself, and we kind of hit it off from there. Became really good friends, and still to this day, we're really good friends.
We bonded instantly. We liked the same kind of nerd things. We were both big into DDP yoga, and it was really cool to find a person there at the shows automatically that I could relate to. Come to find out, Laura Phoenix, which is another competitor at MWO, was also into DDP yoga. So I had two people there already who knew what I was about and was geeked about me being there. So that made it a little easier.
The first time that I saw him, as he walked up to me, I felt myself being nervous because I was worried that I was worried that he was going to trip and fall or something like that, and I did not want to see anything like that happen. He was, very, he had a look of determination, but he was still very wobbly on his feet when he would have to walk extended distances.
It was kind of intimidating because Jason's bigger than me. He was joined by his brother Jeff Klaus, who didn't really say much, but just kind of stood there like he was sizing me up, sort of, to kind of get a read on what kind of guy I was. Honestly, I didn't think Jeff liked me at all.
It was very clear, in the first couple of minutes of talking to him, this guy, everything that we had discussed during the initial text conversation was very much how he presented it. He was very organized. He was very excited about it. He was clearly a fan of professional wrestling.
Jason gave me 5 minutes before showtime, while people were getting into their seats and getting ready, to come out and talk about it.
I had talked to a couple of the roster members, some who had very early, beginning experience in doing DDP yoga. They were on board, and they were going to give this potential new program an opportunity, and in turn gave Todd an opportunity.
I remember standing in the gorilla position, waiting to go out, and the theme song hit, and I burst through that curtain, and nobody cared. Nobody knew who I was. Nobody even knew what DDP yoga was at that time, at least in that room. I walk out like I'm entering Madison Square Garden to crickets. And it was a little deflating, a little intimidating, but I went around the ring and tried to get people to clap my hand, and maybe one or two might have. And I took the microphone and very briefly told my story. Said I was going to be holding classes. And that was it. I got to participate in a wrestling show in some way. I thought that was all I was going to ever do on a wrestling show in the real world. I never thought in a million years that I'd be part of a wrestling company at all. I just thought this was a great way to plug the show. I thought this was a great way to plug DDP yoga and get my classes rolling, and hopefully made some new friends along the way. We decided to push forward and make a second record. We thought if the first record was good enough to get people to listen, maybe a second record that's even better would gain more interest from other people. We went in the studio, we wrote a record that is probably my favorite record I've ever been a part of, and it was called If a Tree Falls. It was more up-tempo, more rock, but still very groove-oriented and melodic, and we started to promote it. We started doing some shows. We set up a couple showcases, but Ash's personal life started getting in the way. He had gotten divorced and started dating a waitress that he met, and they were together for about 3 months, and then they got married, and things rapidly started falling apart shortly thereafter. It really took away from his drive and focus, and he was never totally present when we would do things. He was always distracted by having to text or call on his phone, and always very scatterbrained. He had gotten so low, the marriage started falling apart and other personal issues in his life, that he attempted to take his own life. That was the first time I ever experienced that kind of situation, and with it being someone who was so close, almost like a brother, I really didn't know how to process it. Thankfully, Johnny found out about it before anybody else, and he was able to rush to him and practically save his life. But Ash was never the same after that. He was trying to go to therapy, but ended up shrugging it off a lot of the times. Got on medication and then didn't take it like he should have. And really became a shell of the person he used to be. He was a lot more disgruntled all the time. He was more quick to anger, shorter fuse. He'd blow up at the band over little things that really were not important. And I decided that it wasn't worth being in the band anymore if that was what was going to keep happening. I thought it was more important to save a friendship than salvage this band. So I left the band. But being as that I saw Building Birds as my last attempt to really make it, not only did I leave the band, but I left music altogether. I was done. I was over it. I tried so hard for so many years and wasn't getting anywhere that I decided this was it. I told everybody, I sold my drum set. I went and kind of tried to start finding myself again in a new way.
So Todd and I actually debuted in the MWO at the same time. I did my first day of ring announce the day that Todd came to MWO for the first time to promote DDP Yoga. I mean, I met him. He seemed like a nice enough guy. I didn't think that he was going to become a reoccurring figure in MWO, especially not to the capacity that he would. But I guess in that respect, I was humbly surprised.
Through all the process of teaching and all the adventures, I started going to more MWO shows, helping out, setting up the ring, setting up the chairs or whatever. Somehow I wanted to be a part of this company. Somehow I wanted to contribute. And I ended up becoming a videographer.
He came in and really helped. I mean, the video and the audio quality and production values in our videos for the MWO, I mean, that quality jumped significantly because of Todd. And, he came in the locker room and became a cool guy to hang out with in the locker room.
You could really tell, especially with all the pomp and circumstance that went on with WrestleRama 21, and Todd being exposed to that atmosphere for the first time, that specific atmosphere, because that year we went all out. It was our first big arena show, and I knew, that the bug had bit him, as they say, and he wanted to be a part of the show. He wanted some sort of on-air role.
I was in theater most of my life. I was a musician, so I didn't have too much fear of getting on a microphone. And we had done the backyard wrestling, and while I know that's not training, I still thought it gave me a leg up, at least psychologically, to understand what goes into being involved in this. So I pitched the idea to Jason, and I said, I would love to be a character. I would love to be a manager. I would love to wrestle. I don't know if I can, but I'd love to explore it. But I would love to at least start out as a manager and see what happens. The tradition after setup was we would go to this Coney Island that was next door to the flea market the show was held. We all sat down at breakfast. Jason had me sit near him at the front of the table. And we all ordered our food, and I remember him handing the menu off, looking up at everybody at the table saying, well, Todd wants to be a manager.
If you can't be a wrestler, what's the next best thing? Gonna become a manager.
Right after he said that, I'll never forget Jim, who wrestled as ex-convict in the MWO, speaking up almost instantaneously saying, I'll take him, he can manage me. And Jim had been in the company for a while. Jim was a veteran in many senses of the word. And here's this veteran wanting to give me a shot, and he doesn't even hardly know me. I thought that was so cool. And before I had a chance to reply, Jason said, you know, that'd be fun, but I think I've got a better idea.
Blackwell is one of those guys, when you see him, he stands out. He is the largest athlete in the Michigan Wrestling Organization. Bill had all the in-ring tools, but wasn't great on the mic. Todd was awesome on the mic, but obviously could not make the transition to a full-time wrestler, so it's like, there we go.
Jason came up with the name Simon. Simon Page. The idea was he was this methodical, mischievous, kind of a weasel, but also brilliant. He was the voice and the conscience of this giant monster known as Blackwell.
I thought it was great because I always need somebody to talk for me because I can't talk with a damn. And I instantly came up with ideas that we could do. I was watching the movie The Mighty. I was like, man, I could totally be Todd's surrogate. Wrestle for Todd and he can get all the points or all the wins and whatever, and then we can make this ridiculous contract like Sheldon's roommate agreement. We just call it the Simon contract, and anytime that things don't go Simon's way, we just pull out the Simon contract and nope, that's not how it works. We do it this way.
I remember when Todd told me that he was going into professional wrestling with the MWO, and at that point, you know, we were both a little older, and I had run out of the ability to be surprised by any decisions that Todd was going to make. So my natural stance at that point, anytime he tells me, hey, I'm going to do a thing, my natural stance is just, okay, sure, cool, awesome. When's it happening? Hey, I'm going to be in the MWO. I'm going to do professional wrestling. I'm training to be a professional wrestler. Oh, awesome, cool. When's it happening? I want to show up.
So Blackwell and I are off to the races. In the beginning, I had no clue what I was doing. I wore some of the most ridiculous things. We both did. I was all over the place.
That was where I first kind of got to interact with that side of Todd personally, because he'd be cutting promos, I'd be having to retort, and at the time, Blackwell was looking for my Great Lakes title. So we had a couple matches there, very hard hitting, and that one would have to take the brunt of Bill in the ring. But then you turn around and you got yourself getting choked or sucker punched by Todd on the outside, and then of course just back and forth on the microphone. Good times. I think that feud on those matches really helped cement me in that mid-card, top of mid-card Great Lakes title position, and had a good part in getting me ready for moving on to the heavyweight scene after that.
When I finally got to see him, got to watch him do what he does, boy, that was one of the most fun times. It was so great to watch because it was everything. It brought back so many memories of us together in the backyard. But it was a natural evolution of all that too. He was a heel at the time, which he's so good at. Oh man, watching him coming down, strutting around the ring, he had the heel face, and every great heel in wrestling history, you gotta have the heel face. And Todd has such an excellent condescending douche face that he can put on for his character. It's so, I was dying in my seat. I'm like, don't laugh. Whatever you do, don't laugh. Don't break the moment just because you know the inside.
The question came into was, who do we put as Blackwell's partner in some sort of a tag match with Rex and Laura, because they, had experience wrestling other tag teams in the company. This would culminate in a tag match, and we decided that Todd really pushed for wanting to be involved in this match. And I ain't gonna lie, I was very, very nervous about it. And I talked to a lot of, people whose opinions, I really mean something to me. And I'm like, what do we do here? And, we came up with ideas on how to protect Todd, but still give him that, his moment, right? That moment of being in the ring as a wrestler and doing something, in that kind of scenario, that's the littlest thing that means the most.
When Todd first came to the MWO, I believe they were doing shows at the flea market up on Dordt Highway, and I don't know if this is the first time I saw him or not, but I seen him in a match. He was throwing some of the weakest punches I've ever seen in my life. He was out there in spandex. I don't know, man. He just was not, in my opinion, believable as a wrestler.
I wasn't comfortable in my own skin, so to speak. I understood the character, but many aspects of the character I had a hard time getting across. A lot of it, I think, had to do with the fact that if you look at me, you can tell that there is some sort of disability going on. And it's really hard to make people suspend disbelief that much where they don't notice that. As hard as I tried, it was really almost impossible to get them to not notice that side of me.
When you're working with someone who doesn't know all the technical ins and outs of a particular match and how to work around someone's, not disabilities, okay? Let's say shortcomings, because that is one thing Todd Gilbert is not, okay? That man has more ability, heart, determination in his little finger than 90% of the workers out there on the indies right now. And you can argue with me all you want. Todd Gilbert is a one of a kind. He is an inspiration. But back then, I would have called Todd a liability.
To Rex and Laura's credit, they really went above and beyond to make sure that everything went as flawlessly as possible, and having Bill there as Todd's partner, at the end of the day, who's going to mess with Todd Gilbert when you got Bill Blackwell just chomping at the bit, if need be. So
I had gotten to the point where I decided, being a bad guy, can be fun, but I think for this to work, I need to be a good guy. I think for this to work, I need to bring a little bit of my real life into this. I need to acknowledge the disability. I need to show people who I really am and involve that into my character and story and everything like that, and push forward that way. I pitched the idea to Blackwell and to Jason. Both of them were very receptive. And we went and started a feud with Jeff and Jason, the Klaus brothers, and became good guys.